Hey guys, I'm Mike and welcome to this session of Rescue Academy. So in this session, we're going to talk about how to be a world-class shame breaker. We're going to talk about some of the core issues that people struggle with. We'll talk about identity and its incredible power in our lives. I'm also going to teach you 3 vows of a rescuer, which you can use with everyone you come in contact with. By the way, I hope you're enjoying this course so far. And if you are, I would love to hear from you. I really would. And you can just email me at mikefoster@secondchance.org. That's pretty easy, right? If you're a tweeter or a Facebooker, share what you're learning online and hashtag it Rescue Academy. I can check it out there too. Okay, so let's dive into this session. All right, confession time. I'm not a very good handyman. I know all men are supposed to be born knowing how to take care of anything mechanical or construction related, but I guess I'm kind of lacking in that chromosome. Of course, that doesn't stop me from trying. One time I was hanging something in our dining room and I needed to tap it into a stud in the wall. So I used my little stud finder and marked the spot, and then I just started hammering that nail, and the next thing I know, water starts shooting out everywhere. You see, I wasn't nailing into a stud, I was nailing into a water pipe. Oops. So my little mistake made a huge mess, and a plumber had to come out and repair the pipe. They tore out the wet drywall and they made the repair. And then the plumber looked at me and said, "Hey Mike, you're gonna need to get someone to patch this wall and to repair the hole." But I was so sick of the whole mess and just wanted it to go away. I was embarrassed that I had messed up the wall and hit the water pipe. So you know what I did? I just covered up the big hole in the wall with a big picture. Now it looked just fine to everyone else. But every time I passed by that picture, I knew what lay underneath. A gaping monument to my sucky home maintenance skills. And my solution for fixing this hole of shame was to cover it up. We live in a world like that, don't we? Everyone is trying to keep up appearances. We cover up the holes in our lives with nice pictures. We hide our shame and our insecurities. Like, hello, social media, anyone? Like, right, perfect pictures with perfect filters of perfect moments with our perfect little lives. But maybe we're not so perfect. I mean, think about these statistics. 1 in 10 Americans are currently clinically depressed. 1 in 4 struggles with an addiction. 24 million have an eating disorder. 1 in 7 people engage in self-injury. 40 million Americans suffer from an anxiety disorder. Now think about this. This is a shocking one. Studies show that half of all the people you lay eyes on today have seriously considered suicide, and 1 in 10 have actually attempted it. So what's driving all this stuff? What's driving many of these statistics? These overwhelming feelings of despair and hopelessness and escapism? One word: shame. The belief that we are inherently flawed and unworthy of love. It is the hole that we try to cover. So author and theologian Dr. Lewis Smead says, "Shame lays like a lifeless blanket over the entire human race. It is a poison that infects us all." So let me take a moment and define shame for you. What does it look like? What does it feel like? Well, first, shame is the persistent feeling that you are not acceptable. Number 2, shame is the belief that you are less than a good person. 3, shame is a vague, undefined heaviness that presses on your spirit. Shame is a primal feeling that discolors all other feelings. And shame is the repeating voice that tells you that you don't measure up, so do more. After doing this for a lot of years and honestly fighting my own battle with shame, I've learned something about it. It takes time to work through these issues. Psychologist Carl Jung once said, "Be patient with the crippleness of the world." And that's a good word for all of us. Healing is a process and you just can't rush it. All right, so let's talk about the difference between shame and guilt. People often use the words guilt and shame like they are the same thing, but really they're very different. And I want to point out some of these clear differences right now. So guilt says, I did something bad. It's the discomfort we feel for violating our own values. Where shame says, I am bad. And that's an intense belief that somehow we are inherently flawed and unworthy of love. Guilt says you can do better. It challenges us to grow into what God calls us to be. While shame says you are broken. It defeats us before we even begin. Guilt says, I confess. It admits its wrongs and moves on. While shame says, I'm fine. It hides behind a wall of false confidence and compensation. Guilt says you'll be forgiven. Shame says you'll be rejected. Guilt can be dealt with through wise counsel, but shame must be healed through love. So this topic is really key to helping people be free and find hope for life. And when I started looking around, I discovered, honestly, some pretty lame ways we try to deal with our shame and try to help people in their shame. Many people have tried these strategies to overcome shame, either in their own life or when helping others. But sadly, they don't work, though many of us still believe that they do. So I'm going to give you 4 of these ways that don't really work, and then I want to offer up a powerful strategy that does work with healing shame. But first, here are the 4 strategies that we try that won't really work. Strategy number 1, the give yourself a trophy strategy. This strategy for healing shame says if we tell ourselves that we're awesome enough times, we will heal our broken heart. A lot of well-meaning people will tell you, you just gotta pump yourself up, think good thoughts, treat yourself, turn that frown upside down. But the problem with shame is that it has a hold of your heart, not your head. And your feelings don't listen to your brain, right? So I could give myself 1,000 trophies and it won't heal the shame I feel deep inside. So strategy number 2 to help try to heal shame that doesn't work really well. And it's this strategy of give yourself an excuse. People will try to minimize their feelings of shame by shifting the blame. Rather than deal with the feelings of unworthiness, they lash out at others. They play the victim. Blame is an effective way for a person to discharge their pain. But playing the victim doesn't heal our shame. It just keeps us trapped in a cycle of powerlessness. Giving ourselves an excuse will never give us freedom. So strategy number 3, give yourself an escape. And this is where the heavy, crippling feelings of shame are solved by numbing it out, by medicating, by escaping. We escape the feelings. People escape into all kinds of things too, like sex and substances and social media and pills and video games and food and I don't know, Netflix binges and even shopping. Retail therapy is often just a quick hit to numb out our feelings of being not enough. So these strategies of giving yourself a trophy, giving yourself an excuse, and giving yourself an escape all fail to heal our deep-seated shame. You see, the problem with these 3 options is that shame does not have a self-cure. Did you hear that? Shame does not have a self-cure. It only has an others cure. So what do I mean by that? Help has to come from the others, not ourselves. Think about the whole idea of what Jesus' good news was about. We can't fix ourselves, but God's love and the love of others can. I think author Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote the book Eat, Pray, Love, said it really, really well. She said this, to be fully seen by somebody and then be loved anyhow is a human offering that can border on the miraculous. You, my friend, when you love people who are struggling with shame, can be that miracle. So, being a shame breaker starts with what I call the 3 vows of a rescuer. And these vows are really 3 simple ways to approach people who are feeling unworthy of love, who feel defective, who feel like they're not enough. And by the way, I build these principles into every counseling or coaching session that I do. This is the foundational work of a rescuer. And these vows break shame in the people I'm working with and that you'll be working with. So number 1, I radically accept people without judgment. Number 2, I remind people of their worth and value. And number 3, I treat people not as they are, but as what they could become. By the way, God does that with us too, and that's why we need to do it with others. So I love the story of Rita Pearson, who she told in a talk called Every Kid Needs a Champion. She's a teacher, and one year she was so overwhelmed by the academic problems of the kids she was teaching in her class that she literally broke down and cried one day. She was that discouraged by the poor results and the unhealthy dynamics of that class. But then she asked herself, is it possible to raise the self-esteem of a child and their academic achievement at the same time? Then it hit her. She says, I just came up with this bright idea. I told all my students, you, my students, were chosen to be in my class. Why? Because I am the best teacher and you are the best students. You see, they put us together, the school did, so we could show everybody else how to do it. One of the students said, like, really? And she said, really. We have to now show the other classes how we do it. So when we walk down the hall, you can't be out of control and making a ton of noise. When you walk down the halls of the school, you just have to strut. And I love that. You just have to strut. So Miss Pearson gave them a saying to repeat. And it goes like this. She says, I am somebody. I was somebody when I came. I'll be a better somebody when I leave. I am powerful and I am strong. I deserve the education that I get at this school. I have things to do, people to impress, and places to go. And you know what she discovered, both for her and her students? You say it long enough, it starts to become a part of who you are. So rescuers restore a person's true identity, not by just puffing them up or building them up with self-esteem, but through radical acceptance and reminding them of their true value, and by treating people not as they are, but as what they could become. Okay, got it? So those are the 3 vows of a rescuer to help people overcome shame. Okay, so let's talk about stickers. You've probably seen those sticker name tags at parties with, Sharpies laying around. It says, hello, my name is, and then there's this blank space for you to fill in your name. And this is pretty easy to fill in, right? My parents gave me my name and I fill it in, I write Mike, and then I slap it on my shirt. Now people at the party or at the event know what to call me, and they know what my name is. Not sure if you know this or not, but our souls actually have name tags too. But instead of it saying, hello, my name is, it says, hello, my identity is. This first sticker is what you call me. The second sticker is who I am. The first sticker is my name, but the second sticker is my identity. You see, we're all born with a blank space on our identity name tag. And that identity name tag, that soul name tag, gets filled in by lots of different sources. Our parents, our friends, trauma, abuse, our jobs, our failures, our successes, they all fight to define you. So as a rescuer, we need to remember that whatever life has written in this blank space for people, we have to be aware of its power in their lives. This is why breaking shame is so important. Because when we struggle with shame, you're saying your soul name tag is, your identity is unworthy or not enough. Your identity name tag says defective. As a rescuer, you'll go to battle with these false, shame-filled identities. You will fight to remind the people you love that they are worthy and that they're valuable and that their life matters. Now, listen, the world is like ridiculously good at selling people false identities, by the way. If you hear the words, I am a nobody, or I'm only somebody if enough times, that becomes your identity. And a person rarely rises above whatever their perceived identity is. Whatever they believe about themselves is their truth. But shame breakers and rescuers say, you are not what the world says you are. I heard it once said that we do not need a new religion or a new Bible. We need a new experience, a new feeling of what it is to be I. Chew on that for a moment, by the way. We need a new experience. We need a new definition of what it is to be I. We need a new definition for our identity. So Let me tell you a story about Gregory Boyle, who's a Jesuit priest who works with a lot of gang members in Los Angeles. He is one of my heroes, by the way. So he works with young people who have been in jail or prison. Their parents are, drug addicts and abusive or just plain absent from the scene. It's pretty raw and it's pretty messy. So they come to Father Boyle with what he calls a lethal absence of hope, where they can't even imagine any sort of future. He says, we tell each person this truth, that they are exactly what God had in mind when God made them. And then we watch as people inhabit this truth, and nothing is the same again in their lives. Father Boyle goes on to say, but a lot stands in the way of this liberating truth. You need to dismantle shame and disgrace. You have to coax out the truth of who they really are. Father Boyle is a shame breaker. Father Boyle is a rescuer. He dismantles shame by reminding people of who they really are. Maybe this feels too basic to you. I don't know. Maybe this doesn't feel like enough. Well, let's look at the results of Father Boyle's strategy. 75% of those who stay with Father Boyle and his program never spend another hour in jail or prison ever again. That's the power of the blank space on that identity name tag. That's what happens when you call out a person's true identity, that you are a child that God delights in. You are his beloved. Your life matters. So as rescuers, we get to help people fill in that blank line on their identity name tag. We get to put beloved or forgiven, beautiful, survivor, brave. So in closing, today I believe God wants to make one more mark on your identity name tag. He has his little Sharpies out, he's got his stickers, and he wants to write the word shame breaker, because that's what you are. That's what you're becoming in the lives of the people that you're helping. Why? Because you, number one, radically accept people without judgment. Number two, you remind people of their value and worth. And number three, you treat people not as they are, but as what they could become. You, my friend, have the high calling, the incredible mission, if you choose to accept it, to radically love hurting, messed up, broken people for who they are. To let people know that they don't have to cover up the hole anymore. They don't have to feel shame anymore. They don't have to try to pretend to be perfect anymore. They can just be themselves. And we will remind them of their worth and value and dignity. And most importantly, how much they are loved.